What happened to you? That's a question I get a lot. And it's a pretty complicated answer. If you found this video, if you found this channel, and you've been told that you have runner's dystonia or a focal dystonia that prevents you from running or walking or any other activities that you might enjoy, I hope by sharing my story that it can help you understand better what's going on with you, because this is just such a mysterious diagnosis and there's not a lot of information about it out there. And if you've watched my passionate video about why I started this channel, I really want to help find answers and help foster a positive community and give hope to people out there who might be struggling with the same thing I am. It's been a long, short in some ways, but very long in other ways, journey. And I'm still trying to figure out what's going on, why this happened to me. My doctors are still trying to figure out what's going on and why this happened to me. So I'll start from the beginning. Back in February of this year, 2024, February 15th to be exact, I had surgery on my left foot. I had had arthritis in my third metatarsal for like over a decade, but I actually didn't even know until about a year prior to that, where one day I was going for a run. It was just like a 4-mile run, and it really hurt. And over the course of about 10 months, I did various interventions with my podiatrist, and the interventions helped, but sometimes there would be flare-ups. Most notably, a couple days before I ran my last marathon, and I almost didn't even show up. I decided it was time to go ahead with the surgery because things weren't getting any better, and even running aside, I could mostly manage it for running, but it was really like a quality of life issue. I couldn't even walk around my house barefoot. The surgery was removing the arthritic part of my third metatarsal and then taking one of the toe tendons and putting it over the head of the metatarsal so that it could move more smoothly. And then I also had a Morton's neuroma in between my third and fourth metatarsal removed. I didn't plan on doing any races until the Detroit Free Press Marathon in October. I thought that would be plenty of recovery time to be able to train for that. The recovery was really difficult for me emotionally. I didn't expect to be in the surgical shoe for a month. I was kind of told it might be like 2 weeks, and then wanted to kind of get you out and at least kind of wean off of it and moving a little bit again, but that was not the case. Like, I wasn't going out to walk or anything like that, but I still needed to function as a human being and move around my house, kind of do simple errands and things like that. And in order to do that, I had to constantly walk on my heel in the surgical shoe and just not put any weight down on my toes or on my forefoot. And that caused all sorts of issues. I was so happy when they told me at my 4-week follow-up that I could stop wearing the surgical shoe. But by then, my foot was still so swollen and just hadn't bent at all in a month. So it was just even hard to actually get a real shoe on my foot. It took me like 30 minutes to be able to do that. I started doing physical therapy about a week or so after I got the surgical shoe off. And I built up to walking a couple of miles a day and back to walking my dog again. And then in the middle of April, so about 2 months after the surgery, about a month not wearing the surgical shoe, and a month into physical therapy, I was walking my dog one night, and we usually do about 1.5 miles. And after about a mile, my ankle started turning, and I like couldn't put my toes down. It just, I can't explain it. It just stopped working, and I was like I couldn't even, I could barely get back to my house. And I was like, that was weird. And I remember going to physical therapy the next day and telling my physical therapist, like, I feel so tired. My feet are so tired. My ankle's tired. My calf is tired. Just exhausted. It was a very weird feeling. And we had ramped it up that week. I wasn't running or anything then, but we had added in some new exercises, and I was like, maybe it's that, because we were doing more jumping types of things and preparing to run again. And then that night I took the dog for a walk again, and this time my foot just stopped working after a half a mile. And I was like, what is going on? This is terrifying. So after it had happened, those 2 nights walking my dog, that weekend I tried to take it really, really easy, because I thought that I tore something at physical therapy or injured myself, that I did something. These bugs are awful. And, rested, iced, compressed, elevated, but it didn't help at all. And I felt with the 2 days of rest over the weekend, I just wasn't any better by Monday. And I happened to have a follow-up with my podiatrist on Monday that was just like a scheduled follow-up. And I also had another physical therapy appointment, because I was going 3 times a week. And I was completely panicking. My podiatrist did an ultrasound on my ankle, and where I said I was having the pain, well, most of the pain, because it was really painful everywhere, like my knee down. And there was inflammation, but there were no tears or anything like that. And she pulled out an air cast for the ankle, which was, I just didn't want to do any more immobilization after being in that surgical shoe for 4 weeks, and felt I had gotten so weak from being in that, and that had caused now a problem with my ankle and other things. So I tried it, and it did nothing at all to stop that motion of my ankle. It just didn't help. It was like, is this even a product? Like, this doesn't do anything. And I went to physical therapy, and we toned it way back. And just throughout that week, I got worse and worse and worse, even though I was doing less and less, and I was just in damage control mode and looking at it like, okay, there's some sort of injury, there's something unhappy that's going on, so I need to treat it like an injury by resting it, icing it, compressing it, elevating it, and not walking, and not doing my physical therapy exercises that would aggravate it. By Thursday of that week, which was a week after I initially had noticed the symptoms. Oh, this boardwalk. It's not straight. Okay. Which is really hard for me to do. Things just got worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't even move around my house. So I called my podiatrist's office, and I was like, I need to get in, like, ASAP. Something is really, really wrong with me. Nothing's helping. I'm not getting better. So they fit me in for, like, first appointment the next day to see what was going on. And it was a very terrible appointment. I will spare you the details. The outcome of it was they gave me a full-on calf boot to wear, which was so horrible, given everything I had been through, to be back in something that was even more restrictive than the surgical shoe, than the other ankle brace. And wanted me to get a ultrasound for blood clots in case something like that had happened, because that would sort of be something that might come on suddenly, and also get an MRI. But the MRI did not come fast. Scheduling was about, the earliest I could get was like a week and a half out, even though the ultrasound, we did a stat order, so I got that right away, and that was all clear. And I got the MRI at the beginning of May, and waiting those 1.5 weeks for the MRI, man, it's probably the worst 1.5 weeks of my life, for sure, having no idea what is wrong with you and not getting better. I got the MRI late on a Monday night at the beginning of May, and Wednesday morning, the health system that I had gotten the MRI at had a huge cyber attack. Like, it affected multiple states. So the MRI results had not been read yet, and nobody could get access to them. So they were just there. And that just added such an extra degree of absolute terribleness. It's kind of funny right now when I look back at it, but it was like, really? Come on, man. Like, really? So that week, because nothing was going anywhere fast, I found a sports medicine doctor and made an appointment, and was able to see him on Friday. The sports medicine doctor evaluated me, did another x-ray, heard my story, did, some strength, balance types of tests, and he said, I don't think that there's anything wrong with you, bone-wise, muscle-wise, tendon-wise. Get out of that calf boot. It's only going to make you weaker and cause more issues. And I was like, what, really? What he did think was that I could have maybe a compressed nerve or nerve damage or something like with my nerve. So he referred me to a neurologist for nerve testing. And I was able to get into the neurologist maybe in like a week or so. And that neurologist, again, heard my whole story, all my symptoms, and did 2 different types of nerve tests with me, and found that I did not have any nerve issue in my calf or my ankle or my foot. And what he said to me is that I think this is a focal dystonia. And I was like, what's that? And he said, like writer's cramp, like when people write, like using, pencil paper, pen paper, like they get a cramp in their hand and their muscle just can't work and they can't write anymore. And he's like, it's like that, but I'm not the one to treat you for that. Go see my colleague who is in the same office, another neurologist that specializes in movement disorders and dystonia. And he's like, the treatment for that is Botox. And I was like, oh. And really how I had been thinking about what had been going on with me this whole time was that either I injured a muscle or a tendon or something, and then because I had been so long in the surgical shoe, or because whatever we had done in physical therapy or whatever it was, like there were muscles that were weakened and then muscles that were strained, and there was more of like an imbalance where my other muscles really couldn't help me walk correctly because they were just weaker or injured or angry, inflamed, whatever it was. But what he meant was that you're having muscles that are overfiring, overcontracting, overworking, and causing your ankle to go like that. And that was a really different way of thinking about it. It didn't sound so bad when he had first said it. I was like, okay, like a writer's cramp, like, you know, we can deal with that, like Botox. I've gotten that in my forehead before, like no big deal, we can do it in my leg. But then I started looking at Dr. Google and looking at the internet, and I had mentioned my symptoms and this possible diagnosis and on Facebook, and somebody had directed me to one of the Facebook groups about it, and I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have looked at that. That was a bad time. I'm going to say the people, all these doctors that I've seen that I have mentioned to you, have like really gone to bat for me, and the office staff have really helped me. Like, they got me in when I needed to get in so quick. And it was absolutely amazing that I was able to see my sports medicine doctor and the two neurologists like quickly when all this was happening, because I was looking at going to Walt Disney World in just a couple of weeks, and I couldn't walk. And you have to be able to walk to go to Disney World. As you can see, I have run a marathon at Walt Disney World and multiple half marathons. I am no stranger to doing 30,000 steps at Disney World, and many more when you add in a run. So I was completely panicking. By some absolute miracle, I was able to see the movement disorder specialist, who's the second neurologist, a couple of days later after my nerve testing. And this was 3 days before I was set to go to Disney World. And still, I didn't know what was going to happen. The appointment with him did give me some hope. Like everybody I've seen, having had this foot surgery, you know, just a few months prior, it just seems so clearly, okay, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, whatever it is, like it has to be something with the foot surgery. Like you just had this surgery, you were immobilized for so long, you know, it's got to be something related to that. And he had me do things like walk backwards, and the dystonia, like the ankle movement, still happened when I walked backwards. So he was kind of like, usually if it's a focal dystonia, it's very like task specific. I was like, I wasn't even running. Like, why do I get runner's dystonia? I wasn't even running. I was just walking and not doing much of that either. So why did this happen to me? And he was like, whatever the reason is that it happened, you know, it's still a dystonia, and we're going to treat it like any other dystonia, which is with Botox. But we can't do it today because we need to get a prior authorization from your insurance. And I'm like, I'm going to Disney World in 3 days, and I am going to go on a mobility scooter. At that point, I had already accepted that I would be going with a mobility scooter because I was not going to cancel that vacation. But at least I knew before what the treatment plan was going to be, and I had built up my strength at that point enough to know that I'd be able to handle like all the ride queues. I wouldn't be able to walk around the park or get from, you know, the resort to the park, but I'd be able to stand. Standing was okay. And I'd be able to do ride queues, especially ones where like you actually really are, you know, you're waiting in line and, you know, so you're walking, stopping. I knew I'd be okay then. And I had only started walking just the week before, just trying to walk because my sports medicine doctor told me that I should walk. And it took me a couple of days to believe him on that. And I started trying, and I was able to do it enough where I felt I'd be able to manage the trip. After we got back from Disney, I had a follow-up with him, and we did the first Botox injection. And that was on June 3rd. While I had been at Disney, I had used the mobility scooter. I did all the ride cues, and I was able to walk around the resort without the mobility scooter. But every night, I would practice walking a mile or more around the resort using my ankle brace, because I very much needed that at the time. And it was like an ASO brace. It's not like a calf boot or anything like that. Something that's like, has like laces on it. Kind of looks like a wrestler's shoe. But something you can wear your normal sneakers with it, thank God. And so, even without the Botox, I knew I had already gotten stronger. And was doing way more than I had done 2 weeks prior, which was nothing. I'd been doing nothing. And I made it to like maybe 1.75 miles one time. It was really hard, but I did it. So we went ahead with the Botox, and the Botox started kicking in about after a week. And since then, I am almost 15 weeks tomorrow after Botox. I have not gotten a second shot yet. I have continued to improve by just walking every day, keeping at it, pushing the pace, pushing the miles, doing varied walking by like trying to do hills, do downhills, doing walks in the woods, hiking like I am now. I weaned myself off of the brace in July. I had started practicing without it in June. So here I am. Having a moment. Okay. So we are 5 days out from our next Disney trip. And my sole goal for the past 4 months has been to be strong enough and be able to walk enough that I never have to be there on a mobility scooter again. And that I'll be able to walk around the park by myself, no ankle brace. And there's been a lot of times over the last couple of months I thought it wasn't going to happen. If I could do that over 4 months, if I could go from literally not being able to do anything to being able to go to Walt Disney World and do it all on my own, you can do what you want to do too. The last thing that I want to mention, because I'm the type of person, I want to know why something happened. And as I've gone through all of this, it's been a very traumatizing experience, to be frank. I don't mean to compare my trauma to anyone else's traumas, but suddenly losing your ability to walk, marathon runner, not marathon runner, no matter what you do, it's terrifying. Some diagnoses that have been thrown around. One is a functional neurological disorder, and another one is complex regional pain syndrome. And there's no definitive diagnosis, and maybe some disagreements between my providers, what might be happening or not happening. And they're both diagnoses of exclusion where like there's no test for that. You kind of get the diagnosis after everything else has been ruled out. When you present with a certain set of symptoms that can't otherwise be explained by another medical disorder. That's something for another video. But the long and short of it is that with those diagnoses or anything similar, is that my body, my mind reacted to having a surgery like it was a trauma, like it was a bodily trauma. And these reactions can be delayed for, after a couple months after you have a surgery. And that there's nothing like It wasn't anything that like the surgery did. Like it had nothing to do with like which surgery happened or like how the surgery was performed and if we took the nerve out or didn't take the nerve out or whatever it is. It could have really been anything. For me, I'm comfortable with that because if I know that there's not anything actually physically wrong with me, I mean, there's a lot physically wrong with me, obviously. I can't run. But I mean, like, there's no like injury, right? Or there's no broken bones. There's no nothing. It's neurological, psychological. The brain can relearn. And I have seen already that it's relearning. It can absolutely happen. I never imagined 4 months ago, I really thought I was never going to do anything again, let alone run. I was never. Nothing. I really thought that. So if you're in that place right now, it's not true. You can do things again. You really can. And it's going to be a hard process and a slow process. But at the same time, it's possible. So that's the hope that I'm living on right now, because I can look back and see my progress. And I remember how bad things were. And I'm just so grateful to be a functional person and to be able to go for walks. That's all I wanted when this happened to me. If I can run again, it will be an absolute blessing. But I begged and prayed that I could just walk again. And it was a lot of hard work, but it happened. I hope by sharing my story that you can see there is hope. I have made progress. I will continue to make progress. There are treatments that can help runners' dystonia, and you will get better if you keep plugging away at it. And I really hope that you do. If you're not running right now, I think you can run again. I think I can run again. You asked me a couple months ago, I'd say no, I don't think so. I think it's over for me. But I'm going to try in October when we come back from Disney, because no way in hell was I going to run and trip and sprain my ankle. I wasn't going to risk anything like that. But every little bit that I do hold off on running, I do think, okay, it's going to be easier when I try. It definitely is going to be easier when I try. Thanks for watching my video. I would really love if you would subscribe to my channel or leave comments under the video. You're not alone in this, and I really hope to build a positive community through this YouTube channel for people who are affected by runner's dystonia or focal dystonia that prevents them from running, walking, or anything else that they love. So here's to keep pushing forward, building positivity, and that's it for now. Thanks. We have almost an hour at a slower pace, but pretty good for filming while walking and for walking trails. So glad I could have a little workout while I did this too.